Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the introduction to debugging, okay? And we're going to kind of get into what debugging is all about. So we're going to understand the term of debugging, understand what a syntax error is, understand what a logical error is, and understanding some tools. In this case, what we're going to talk about is breakpoints that we can use to help us debug. I find this topic to be a very, very important topic that students tend to overlook. All right, when we get into programming, a lot of cases we just kind of think we come in, write a program, press a button, and hopefully it works. Some of the programs you've been writing up to this point have been, we started off with a couple lines of code. They have evolved in about 25 to 30 lines of code, and that's great. In a lot of cases, it doesn't need a lot of debugging, and we'll define what that means in here. But in the real world, you're going to start writing and be part of or enhancing programs that are 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 lines of code. And sometimes there's going to be errors in that particular program that you need to be able to find before we ever let users use it. We can spend hours upon hours trying to find these little bugs, okay? Or we can use the tools and the concepts to be able to do that. Throughout the curriculum, we're going to show you different ways of debugging for different languages. We're going to start today talking about Visual Basic. I highly recommend you learn how to debug your programs. Not only, even if the program works right now, learn how to use these debugging tools and some of the techniques that we'll get in here and show you. Why? Because I just had a lady in my class, in Programming 2 class, where the program got kind of involved, I should say, more complex. It's telling me she looked at the program for 12 hours and can't figure out why it's not working. She came to me, I asked her the question, did you debug it? Did you use the tools that we're going to talk about in these set of videos this week? And she goes, no, but I will. She found the problem in 3 minutes. I think you want to do that, right? I think you rather find problems in 3 minutes versus spending 12 hours staring at a program, not understanding why it works. So don't avoid this. This is a very hard thing for us to teach because we can't really, force you to debug your programs. The assignments that we're going to be doing for this week will ask you to show us that you're doing it, but even that doesn't show us that you're really embracing the whole concept of debugging. All right? But I'm going to implore you, not for me, not for to be mean or anything, I'm going to implore you to sit back and learn how to do this. Why? Because you'll get done with your assignments 10 times faster. You'll get done with your projects 10 times faster. You'll become a better programmer because of using these tools and understanding how things work, and so on. It's just a great way to become an overall professional software developer, learning how to debug your programs. Okay? Anyway, so let's kind of get into this. What is debugging? Debugging is a process of finding and resolving defects or problems within a computer program that prevent correct operation of the program. So if your program doesn't compile, if your program doesn't run, or the results are wrong, there's a reason for that, correct? Well, the process of going in and fixing this problem and going in and finding the reasons for it not working is called debugging. There hasn't been a program I have written probably in the last 30 years in my professional life that I haven't had to do some debugging on it prior to giving it to my user to use on a daily basis. We're human beings. We don't do things perfectly the first time. Programs are complicated, and sometimes we fat finger things or we type it out incorrectly, or for the most part, just our logic's wrong and it doesn't really work. Hopefully, if you design it and so on, you'll be able to catch that early enough, but sometimes you don't. So we need to be able to debug. But like I said, I've seen logical problems. All of a sudden, people say, I did everything I was supposed to do, but I'm still getting the wrong answers. Or I always hear this, I'm always getting zeros. I'm going to go, okay, that's fine. And so why? I don't know. Well, there's a reason for that. And if you learn how to debug, you'll find that reason probably really, really quickly. I'm also going to say this before we dive into this a little bit further. This week, we're going to learn about debugging the programs that you're writing today. Once again, you may sit back and roll your eyes going, I don't need to debug this program. I found my error just by looking at it. I implore you to practice it right now, because I promise you, I promise you in the next few weeks, you'll wish you'd learn how to debug. Because the programs, we're going to be doing stuff with the programs. We're going to break things apart. We're going to be passing data. We're going to be doing all kinds of things as we learn about procedures and functions and so on. That debugging is really going to help that. That's where you're not coming into a lot of issues. All right? We'll talk about debugging a little bit when we get to that part too. But with this right now, learn how to use this tool. It's so simple. It's ridiculous how simple it is. All right? All right. So what kind of defects can we have in our code? Well, we can have syntax errors. Obviously, you know about those. Those are mistypings. And we can have logical errors. Both will cause the program to either not run or give improper output. Either way, the program's wrong, right? We talked about that with our test cases. Our program has to be right. It cannot be wrong. We cannot have output that's wrong. It just makes no sense. Why would we use the program? Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, syntax. Syntax, when I talk about a syntax error, okay, I don't know if we ever really explained this yet in previous videos. When we talk about a syntax error, we're talking about a spelling error or a grammar of the programming language. Every programming language basically expects their language to be written a certain way. You've seen that now in VB, okay? If it's not written that certain way, and what you've experienced is the little red lines all over the place, or whatever, right, that you need to fix it. Those are called syntax errors. In this particular language, it won't even allow you to try to run the program, aka build the program and then run it, if there's syntax errors in your code. And so we need to make sure we can fix these syntax errors. Most of the syntax errors are usually misspellings of controls, or they could be you didn't close a structure with an and if, or something like that. IntelliSense obviously will help with this quite a bit. Visual Studio allowing you to write Visual Basic really helps you write your program to eliminate syntax errors. Yes, back in my day, that wasn't the case. We would write our program, send it through what's called a compiler, where it interprets our language and tries to make it into machine language. And in doing so, it would actually tell us you got all kinds of syntax errors you need to fix before I'll ever be able to build this, aka compile this to be able to actually run it, okay? So once again, Visual Studio has come a long way to really help us solve our syntax errors as we're actually writing the program. An example there I had there is, you might name something TEXT first name when it should be TXT first name. It's just usually fat fingering, no big deal. Just doing something that the language does not understand for the most part. Misspellings of variables could be another one. Also need a DDL. Whatever it is, missing or complete code, whatever, it's basically a syntax error is an error that we create because we did not adhere to the language, or we're doing something that's confusing the language in itself. And again, you probably have experienced that 100 times now, even in the short amount of weeks we have spent in this course. So that's what a syntax error is all about. Okay? Those are pretty easy to find. Syntax errors are relatively easy to find, especially with IntelliSense around to help you. You might have, maybe you get an error you still don't understand. Hover over the red lines. Once again, I'm going to go back to here. Hover over those red lines. I'll show you that in the next video. Hover over those red lines and make sure you understand what it is that it's saying and try to resolve it from there. Sometimes the message is vague. Sometimes the message is right on. You just got to get used to it, and that all comes with experience and practice. The other type of error that we concern ourselves with even more so in syntax errors are logical errors. A logical error is a mistake in the programming source code, meaning the language itself, that results in an incorrect or unexpected behavior. It's a type of runtime error that may simply produce the wrong output, or it may cause the program to crash, abnormally end while running. There's many different types of programming mistakes that can cause logical errors. These are the ones that are harder to find. IntelliSense doesn't help us with these. You must find these yourself. This is why we want you to design your program. So if you follow what I've been telling you up to this point, and you do the things we talk about at this point, it eliminates the possibility of logical errors. If you do things in a nice set order that we ask you to do, declare your variables, get your input, validate that input, do your calculation and display versus mixing that all together, it's very easy to find these logical errors. So there's reasons why we're telling you to do it this way, because once again, spending less time debugging is a great thing. And please understand, I'm going to say it one more time, the programs you've been writing thus far, though challenging for beginner programmers, is nothing like the real world. So learn how to do this now when things are simple, okay? If your program is designed properly, like I said before, and you have checked your logic in your pseudocode, your logic errors might be just simply typos. Instead of doing if less than 500, or you might type in less than 500 when it should have been greater than 500. And all of a sudden your condition doesn't work, okay? Well, once again, usually when you write, or see what I have here, DBL equals DBL subtotal when it should be plus equals subtotal. These are all easy little things, fat finger things. The program will compile. It's not a syntax error. It understands that language that you wrote, but the results would be different based upon writing these two statements incorrectly. All right? Let me go back to this a little bit. What happens with logical errors is that you, as the programmer, write the program and you become, what do you want to say, tied to it. You become sort of passionate about it. That I wrote this, I did this, this should work. This is what I see a lot of students do, students and beginner programmers do. They become very passionate in their work and they almost in their heads, almost, I want to say, get this type of denial where my program should work. There's something wrong with the computer. And then with that, you sit back and you look at it, and I don't see anything. You can't even see your mistakes because you become so passionate and again you have this denial that there has to be something wrong with it. It's really strange, and so I'm going to tell you, you need to get rid of that. You need to get rid of that ego. You need to say, ugh, because I'm going to tell you, I've been programming now for a long, long time, longer than I want to talk about. But there has never been a time in any program I've ever written where there's an error and it wasn't caused by me. I promise you that. I can sit back and say, my program should work. There's something else wrong. No, it's not. It's always me. There's always a reason for these errors, and there's always going to be a reason. It's your job to find them. Once you can embrace that fact that that error is in there somewhere and it's fixable, and once you embrace the fact that the error is in your program, and once you embrace the fact that it's fixable, now you can attack and debug it correctly. All right? It's almost a freeing type of thing. I got an error. Let's find it. I enjoy finding errors. I don't know why. It's like a puzzle to me, okay? And I think as a programmer, you should enjoy it also. We're problem solvers. And so this is a problem that you're going to have. You're going to have bugs in your code, okay? And with that, finding them sometimes can be fun. I want you to have fun with it. And it can get frustrating at times, but try really hard to subside the frustration, allow yourself to see all the opportunities where you can find the resolution for your bugs. Does that make sense? So once again, when your program doesn't work, tell yourself, don't get frustrated. It's part of this. It's part of the process of programming. 2, tell yourself, it has to be me. I'm the one that made the mistake in this code somewhere. 3, and I can fix this. And then attack it, and you'll be perfectly fine. Experience plays a huge part. The more you program, the more programs you write, the more times you debug things, the more times you find things, the better you're going to become a programmer, the better you'll become as a debugger, and so on. There's no doubt about it. And so that's why we're talking about this now, so you learn how to do this, okay? Using breakpoints to debug. Well, in Visual Studio gives us a nice tool to debug. Not every language does. Matter of fact, some of the languages that you're going to become familiar with throughout the rest of the curriculum have different ways of debugging. Some cases you're going to have to get in and get your hands dirty and kind of debug it yourself using some, not so creative tools. But Visual Studio gives you one wonderful tool, and that's called a breakpoint. I'm going to show you how to use them in the videos coming up. But in this case, in software development, a breakpoint is an intentional stopping or pausing place in the program. What you have done so far up to this point is you press submit and you hope the results are right. Well, wonder if they're not right. Then you'll go look at the code and stare at it. But you don't really know by staring at it sometimes where it went wrong. Breakpoints allows us to stop the code in its execution, okay? And in doing so, we can now walk through it step by step and look at how the variables change, what the controls may have, and so on, and watch how the conditions actually work. Sometimes you might write the condition wrong, the if statement wrong. You're anticipating it's going to do this when it actually did this. You want to see what happens based upon that. And that's what a breakpoint allows you to do. I like this last statement here. I didn't write this, but for programmers, a breakpoint is as important of a tool as a hammer is to a carpenter. All right, might take it to an extreme, but it is a tool that you should be getting used to and a tool that you always have. I promise you, if you come up to me and you say, Bob, this program's not working, I'm probably going to say, number one, that you debug it. And you may say, I don't know, and I just need some help finding it. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to debug it immediately, and I'll end up finding it in a few minutes. So please learn how to do this. I implore you to do that, okay? Imploring meaning I'm begging you to do this, because not for me, but for you. You'll be, like I said, you'll become a 10 times better programmer, and you'll be doing your work a lot faster. So you must learn this and embrace this. If you do so, you're going to save yourself a lot of time, a lot of frustration, and a lot of hours. And I know we all don't have a lot of hours to be wasting, I should say, when we can actually fix it in a few minutes. Okay?